There's a kind of beauty that doesn't feel like it belongs on Earth. You know the type: misty mountains rising out of nowhere, lakes so still they look like glass, little towns tucked between cliffs and forests where time seems to have just stopped. And here's the wild part: you don't need a plane ticket to Switzerland or New Zealand to see it. It's sitting quietly in upstate New York, a few hours from one of the busiest cities on the planet. Most people think of New York and picture skyscrapers, yellow cabs, and Times Square chaos. But drive a few hours north, and the whole story changes. Mountains replace buildings, silence replaces sirens, and somehow it feels like a completely different world. Today, we're counting down 10 mountain towns in upstate New York that look almost too perfect to be real. The kind of places where you stop mid-walk just to take it all in. Stick around till the end, because the last 3 towns on this list are honestly on a different level. Let's get into it. Number 10, Shrew Lake, Adirondacks. We're starting our list in a place that a lot of travelers drive straight past without realizing what they're missing. Shrew Lake sits quietly along Route 9 in the heart of the Adirondacks, and it's the kind of town that doesn't try too hard to impress you. It just does naturally. The lake itself stretches for miles, framed by rolling green mountains on almost every side, and in the early morning, when the fog hasn't lifted yet, the whole scene looks like something out of a painting. Locals here call it the gem of the mountains, and honestly, once you see the water reflecting the tree line at sunset, you'll understand why. What makes Shrew Lake special isn't one big attraction, it's the pace of life. People come here to slow down. You'll see families paddling canoes in the afternoon, retired couples walking along the shoreline, and kids jumping off docks the way kids have probably done here for generations. In winter, the lake freezes over and turns into its own quiet wonderland, with skaters gliding across the ice like it's the most normal thing in the world. There's also a small-town charm to the main street that feels almost frozen in a good way. Old diners, local shops, and neighbors who still wave at strangers. It's not flashy, and that's exactly the point. Shrew Lake proves that some of the most beautiful places aren't the ones shouting for attention. They're the ones that let the mountains and water do all the talking. If your idea of a perfect getaway involves fewer crowds and more silence broken only by birds and water lapping against a dock, this town belongs on your list. It's proof that beauty doesn't always need to be famous to be real. Number 9, Tupper Lake, Adirondacks. Tupper Lake feels like the town time forgot in the best possible way. Surrounded by thick forest and dotted with lakes on almost every side, this is a place built for people who want nature without giving up comfort. What really sets Tupper Lake apart, though, is something most people don't expect: the sky. This town is known for having some of the darkest night skies in the entire Northeast, which means on a clear night, you can actually see the Milky Way stretched across the sky without any city light ruining the view. Locals take this seriously, too, with stargazing events and an observatory nearby that draws astronomy lovers from hours away. But the daytime here is just as impressive. Paddle down the Raquette River, and you'll pass through marshes, past beaver dams, and under mountain views that seem to shift with every bend in the water. There's also a scenic train that runs along old tracks, giving you views of the river and Mount Arab that you simply can't get from a car window. The town itself has a relaxed, small community feel. Artists, hikers, and families all mixing together on Main Street, grabbing coffee or browsing local shops filled with handmade crafts. Little Wolf Beach, right in town, is where locals go to cool off in summer, and it somehow never feels crowded, even on a warm weekend. What makes Tupper Lake so charming is that it doesn't try to be a big tourist destination. It's a real, lived-in town that just happens to be surrounded by some of the most peaceful scenery in the state. You come here to unplug, to look up at a sky full of stars, and to remember what quiet actually sounds like. It's not about ticking off famous landmarks. It's about slowing down long enough to notice the beauty that's already there. Number 8, Ticonderoga, Adirondacks. History and scenery rarely blend together this well, but Ticonderoga somehow pulls it off. Sitting right on the edge of Lake Champlain, this town carries centuries of stories in its walls, and yet the surrounding landscape still manages to steal the spotlight. The star of the show here is Fort Ticonderoga, a massive stone fortress that played a huge role during the American Revolution. Walking through it feels like stepping into another century, with cannons lined along the walls and sweeping views of the lake and mountains stretching out behind them. But what makes this town feel almost unreal isn't just the fort, it's the setting around it. Lake Champlain glimmers below the fortress walls, with the Green Mountains of Vermont rising on the opposite shore, creating one of those views that looks digitally enhanced even though it's completely natural. Beyond the fort, Ticonderoga offers something for almost every kind of traveler. There are quiet hiking trails leading up nearby peaks, waterfalls tucked into the woods that most tourists never find, and a small downtown that still holds onto its old-fashioned charm. The town square feels like something out of an old postcard, with brick buildings and local shops that have been run by the same families for generations. What's interesting is how the town balances its historical weight with a laid-back, welcoming vibe. You won't find crowds pushing past you or long lines blocking your view. Instead, you get space to actually take everything in: the fort, the lake, the mountains, all without feeling rushed. Ticonderoga is proof that some places don't need to choose between being beautiful and being meaningful. Here, you get both, wrapped into one unforgettable stop that deserves way more attention than it usually gets. Number 7, Saugerties, Catskills. Saugerties sits in that sweet spot where the Catskill Mountains meet the Hudson River, and honestly, that combination alone makes it worth the drive. This isn't your typical mountain town tucked deep in the woods. It has water, lighthouses, rolling farmland, and mountain views all within a short walk of each other. The most iconic spot here is the Saugerties Lighthouse, a small white building that sits right at the edge of the river, only reachable by a scenic walking trail during low tide. Watching the sun set behind it, with the water turning gold and the Catskill Peaks fading into the background, is one of those moments that makes you stop scrolling your phone and just watch. The town itself has this creative, laid-back energy that pulls in artists, musicians, and small business owners who fell in love with the area and decided to stay. Main Street is full of little bakeries, antique shops, and cafes that feel personal rather than corporate. The kind of places where the person behind the counter actually remembers your order. Just outside of town, you'll find rolling farmland that turns bright orange and red in the fall, drawing photographers and leaf peepers from all over the state. And if you're someone who loves waterfalls, Saugerties doesn't disappoint either, with a few hidden gems tucked just outside the main village that most visitors never even hear about. What makes this town stand out is how effortlessly it blends different kinds of beauty. River views, mountain backdrops, and small town charm all rolled into one walkable area. It doesn't feel like you have to choose between nature and culture here. Saugerties gives you both, and it does it without ever feeling overcrowded or overhyped, which honestly makes it even more special. Number 6, Old Forge, Adirondacks. If you've ever dreamed about a town surrounded by nearly 200 lakes, Old Forge is basically that dream come true. Tucked into the southwestern edge of the Adirondacks, this town serves as the gateway to the Fulton Chain of Lakes, a stunning stretch of connected waterways that stretch for miles through untouched forest. The moment you arrive, you'll notice the pace here is different, slower, quieter, and completely centered around the outdoors. Boating, fishing, and hiking aren't just activities in Old Forge, they're basically a way of life. Families have been coming back to the same town for generations, staying in the same cozy cabins, fishing the same quiet coves, and watching the same incredible sunsets bounce off the water. The downtown area keeps that old school charm alive too, with a walkable main street lined with local diners, outdoor gear shops, and ice cream stands that always seem to have a line worth waiting in. One of the town's biggest draws is the Enchanted Forest Water Safari, a massive water park that somehow blends into the natural surroundings instead of clashing with them. But even beyond that, the real magic of Old Forge is simply floating on the water, surrounded by pine trees and mountain silhouettes, with barely another boat in sight. Winter here transforms the whole town into a snowy paradise, too, with hundreds of miles of snowmobile trails cutting through the forest, drawing riders from all over the Northeast. What makes Old Forge so special is how genuine it feels. This isn't a town built to impress Instagram followers. It's a town built around real people who love the outdoors and have protected that lifestyle for decades. When you visit, you're not just seeing a pretty view. You're stepping into a slower, more connected way of living that feels increasingly rare these days. Before we get into the top 5, if you're enjoying this list so far, take a second to like the video and drop a comment telling me which town you'd visit first. It genuinely helps more people discover these hidden corners of New York, and I read every single comment. Number 5, Hunter, Catskills. Hunter earns its spot on this list simply because of how dramatic the scenery gets, especially once winter rolls in. Nestled deep in the Catskill Mountains, this town is home to Hunter Mountain, one of the most well-known ski destinations in the entire state. And once you see those snow-covered slopes glowing under a clear blue sky, you'll understand why people travel hours just to ski here. But Hunter isn't just about winter sports. In every season, the mountain scenery around this town feels larger than life. Summer turns the slopes green and lush, perfect for hiking trails that lead up to viewpoints overlooking the entire valley below. Fall might be the most stunning time to visit, though, as the surrounding hillsides explode into deep reds, oranges, and yellows, turning the whole town into a postcard. The town itself has grown alongside its mountain, offering cozy lodges, local breweries, and restaurants that feel like they were built specifically for tired hikers and skiers looking to warm up after a long day outside. What's fascinating about Hunter is its history, too. It was actually the first ski resort in the country to have full snowmaking coverage, which is part of why it earned the nickname Snowmaking Capital of the World. That innovation still shapes the town's identity today, drawing winter sports lovers from across the Northeast every single year. Beyond the mountain itself, nearby waterfalls and quiet forest trails give visitors plenty of reasons to explore beyond the slopes. Hunter manages to feel both adventurous and peaceful at the same time, offering high-energy activities during the day and calm, star-filled nights once the sun goes down. It's a town built around one incredible mountain. But the beauty it offers extends far beyond just the ski trails, making it a place worth visiting no matter what season you choose. Number 4, Lake George Adirondacks. Lake George has earned its nickname, the Queen of American Lakes. And honestly, once you see the water up close, you won't argue with it. This massive lake stretches for over 30 miles, surrounded by mountains on nearly every side, with more than 300 small islands scattered across its surface. The water here is famous for being incredibly clear, so clear that you can often see straight down to the rocky bottom, even several feet deep. The town itself sits right along the southern edge of the lake, offering a lively downtown filled with restaurants, shops, and waterfront boardwalks where you can watch boats glide past all day long. Steamboat cruises are one of the most popular ways to experience the lake, giving visitors sweeping views of the surrounding peaks while gliding smoothly across the water. For those who prefer solid ground, Prospect Mountain offers a scenic drive right to the summit, rewarding visitors with panoramic views that stretch across the entire lake and beyond. What makes Lake George stand out from other Adirondack towns is its balance between adventure and relaxation. You can spend your morning kayaking through quiet coves, your afternoon exploring hiking trails, and your evening walking along a lively boardwalk filled with the smell of fresh popcorn and the sound of live music. Fall transforms the surrounding mountains into a blaze of color that reflects beautifully across the lake's surface, while winter blankets everything in snow, turning the whole area into a completely different kind of wonderland. Whether you're someone who wants nonstop activities or someone who just wants to sit by the water with a good book, Lake George somehow manages to offer both without feeling chaotic. It's easy to see why generations of families keep coming back to this same lakeside town year after year, season after season. Number 3, Saranac Lake, Adirondacks. Saranac Lake has this rare mix of creativity and calm that makes it feel completely different from the other towns on this list. Once known as a healing destination back in the early 20th century, when people traveled here specifically for the fresh mountain air, the town has since transformed into a thriving hub for artists, musicians, and outdoor lovers alike. Walk down its main street today and you'll find galleries showcasing local artwork, cozy cafes filled with the smell of fresh coffee, and small boutiques run by people who genuinely love their community. But the real magic of Saranac Lake lies just outside its downtown. The town is surrounded by a network of lakes and ponds perfect for kayaking, paddleboarding, or simply sitting by the water and watching loons glide across the surface. Nearby, hikers can climb peaks like Mount Joe or challenge themselves with the famous Algonquin Peak, both offering incredible views over the High Peaks region. What sets this town apart is its balance between culture and wilderness. It's not uncommon to spend your morning hiking through untouched forest and your evening at a live music event downtown, all within the same short walk. The Saranac Lake Winter Carnival, one of the oldest winter festivals in the country, brings the whole community together every year with ice sculptures, parades, and events that turn the freezing months into something genuinely fun. There's also a quiet nature center dedicated to studying the loons that call this region home, giving visitors a deeper appreciation for the wildlife surrounding them. Saranac Lake proves that mountain towns don't have to choose between being artsy and being adventurous. Here, both sides exist together naturally, creating a town that feels alive, creative, and deeply connected to the wilderness surrounding it. Number 2, Woodstock, Catskills. Woodstock carries a kind of energy you can feel the moment you step onto Tinker Street. This isn't just a mountain town. It's a cultural landmark, forever tied to the free-spirited movement that made its name famous around the world, even though the actual festival happened elsewhere. But long before that history, Woodstock was already known as a haven for artists, writers, and musicians seeking inspiration in the surrounding Catskill peaks. That creative energy is still very much alive today. Walking through town, you'll pass art galleries, independent bookstores, and small music venues that feel deeply personal, like stepping into someone's living room rather than a commercial storefront. Cafes spill out onto sidewalks filled with locals debating everything from music to philosophy, and the whole atmosphere feels unhurried in the best possible way. Just outside of town, Overlook Mountain offers one of the most rewarding hikes in the entire region. Get there early in the morning before the mist clears, and you'll be rewarded with sweeping panoramic views across the Catskill Range that make the climb completely worth it. The trail isn't overly difficult either, which means hikers of almost any experience level can enjoy the payoff at the top. Woodstock's surrounding countryside is just as charming, with rustic lodges, vintage cabins, and quiet back roads, perfect for a scenic drive during peak foliage season. What makes this town so special is how it blends culture with nature so effortlessly. You can spend your morning hiking through misty mountain trails and your afternoon browsing handmade pottery or listening to live acoustic music downtown. Woodstock isn't trying to recreate its past. It's simply continuing a tradition of creativity and connection to nature that has defined it for decades, making it one of the most soulful mountain towns in all of upstate New York. Number 1, Lake Placid, Adirondacks. And here we are, the town that easily earns the top spot on this list, Lake Placid. This isn't just one of the most beautiful mountain towns in New York, it's genuinely one of the most iconic destinations in the entire Northeast. Twice home to the Winter Olympics, Lake Placid carries a legacy that few small towns can match, but it's the natural scenery here that truly makes it unforgettable. The town sits right on Mirror Lake, a small, glassy body of water that reflects the surrounding mountains so perfectly that it's genuinely hard to tell where the real landscape ends and the reflection begins. Wake up early and watch the sunrise over that lake with mist rolling off the surface and the high peaks glowing gold in the background, and you'll understand instantly why this town made it all the way to number 1. Downtown Lake Placid keeps that same magic going with a walkable main street filled with cozy cafes, outdoor gear shops, and restaurants offering views that most places would charge extra for. History lovers can explore the Olympic Museum or stand where athletes once made history, while thrill seekers can experience an actual bobsled ride down the same tracks used during the games. But the real showstopper here is Whiteface Mountain, New York's fifth highest peak. A scenic drive takes you almost all the way to the summit, where the views stretch across the entire Adirondack range, offering one of those moments that genuinely takes your breath away. Every season transforms this town into something new. Golden foliage in fall, snowy slopes in winter, wildflowers in spring, and glassy lake mornings in summer. Lake Placid isn't just beautiful, it's proof that a small town can hold on to both history and natural wonder without losing what makes it feel real. If you only visit one town from this entire list, this is the one that deserves your first trip. So there you have it. 10 mountain towns across upstate New York that genuinely feel too beautiful to be real. And honestly, this list barely scratches the surface of what this state has to offer. If this video gave you a new travel idea, or reminded you that adventure doesn't always require a passport, hit subscribe so you don't miss the next Hidden Gem series coming soon. And before you go, let me know in the comments which one of these towns is going straight onto your travel list. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.